In this video, I'm taking a look at the Weiss DS1-MK3 from Softube. Softube has done a one-to-one digital code translation from the $10,000 hardware piece, the Weiss DS1-MK3, which is a combination limiter, de-esser, and compressor. I tested it out for a couple days, read the manual, just to kind of get the gist of how this thing works. And, well, my initial impressions are good. Obviously, on the mix bus, master bus, whatever you want to call it, it sounds nice, natural, transparent, really is the best way I could put it. Polished, slick. These are all adjectives I would use to describe it. And also, it can work well on vocals. But for this review, I'm going to be looking at how I used it in a mastering situation. There are a few things that separate it from the hardware unit. First of all these controls right here, you can touch them and move them around. And also, under the settings, they added 2 new limiting types. And you could browse through. Also, something that I don't think's on the hardware is this parallel compressor option. And also the Bob Katz mode. If you hit the setup button, actually it's called the Bob Ludwig mode. So, but there it is. Always show values. And they'll appear underneath the knob. Although I don't like that they're in the shadow. So hopefully maybe Softube can fix that. The shadow is unnecessary if you ask me. So I'd rather be able to see the values. So let's listen to what this thing can do. First, I'll have the parallel compressor on because that button is big, and you'll hear why in a second. I'll start somewhere in the middle. Oh, I'll just start from the beginning. By the way, thank you to Heavy Metal Mixer for sending this track into me. It sounds great, man.
I was lost, couldn't find my way.
Okay, nothing's happening on the limiter yet, so I'm just going to fast forward it to about right here, actually. Actually, this is a better spot because you can hear a tom drum kick in. By the way, if you're wondering why I have Ozone loaded up, it's because my evaluation period for this plugin expires today. So I loaded it up already.
Again.
Oh, another cool feature is this waveform view.
Again. I was sick. I felt that pain in my heart. I would lie in bed at night and dream of you tearing me apart. I never thought that I would be caught by love so helplessly again. And I can't see a reason why for routine under falling skies again. I never thought that I would be caught by love so helplessly.
Alright, so here's where I want to employ the parallel compressor, or rather deploy it and then employ it as we go along. Ready?
As again. I never thought that I would be caught by love so heavily.
So yes, you can do that by smashing a mix on a send and then bringing it underneath your master mix, but it is super easy to do with this plugin. And basically the way it works is you increase loudness while maintaining dynamics. It's a very cool trick. People do it on drums a lot of times. I do it on piano, vocals sometimes, and it just simply works. So, let's go on to the next mix, shall we? Okay, so I wanted to talk about what you can do with this plugin a little bit more. So, it can do upward expansion, which can help with overly compressed mixes. It has a mid-side function. It does indeed have external sidechain support. As I said earlier, parallel compression. It's got A and B, so that you can compare two different settings, which is always very useful. It has a limiter gain reduction meter. If you buy this, it also includes the MM1 limiter, which I'll load up right now. Which, by the way, if you only want the limiter, this is available. Although, to be honest with you, I don't really like it. It has a bug in it where, for some reason, the signal goes over the setting that you put it on. I mean, once they fix that, it'll be better, but I think you're very limited, no pun intended, by buying this plugin. There's better options out there. Hint, hint, hint. Back to the DS1-MK3. It has a knee adjustment. It has Bobcat's presets, which, by the way, I love this preset system. It's like a website with lots and lots of details. I can't click any of these, otherwise it'll change my settings, but yeah, great job on this Softube. And here's a feature I hope that basically every plugin from now on includes. When you hover over a control, over here pops up a message about what it does. So what makes this processor so unique, and why does it work well? Why did mastering engineers spend so much money on this thing? Well, there's two reasons. Number one, and we're talking, I think, late 90s is when the first one came out. This thing had a digital input so that you didn't have to go through a round trip of conversion, digital to analog, then analog to digital again. And back then, converters weren't really that great. So if you can avoid an analog pass, then you're good to go. The other thing, the main reason this works so well, you see the release control here? It's got the average. You can control how fast the release is. And then you could also control the back end, the slow end of it. And I know it kind of sounds simple just saying it like that, but this is super powerful. Usually you have one release control and that's it. Having three knobs control that release envelope is huge. Oh, and I almost forgot the release delay. And speaking of the hardware, the other reason the hardware was so expensive is because it had a look-ahead limiter, which I think at the time was unheard of. So I think it's 200 milliseconds look-ahead time. I don't know what this one is, but having that small delay really makes a difference in its ability to make things louder without sounding bad. So let's listen to this mix, well, this master, and I'll add in parallel compression as it plays. And the thing I really like about the parallel compressor button is it also brings details out, which makes it sound like the sound stage is bigger. Obviously, it makes things louder too, but it really does bring out details in the tracks, which is a very cool effect. Sometimes you don't want that though. And by the way, I probably should back off on the output when I add the parallel compressor, so I'll do that next time. So as you can hear, it just stays mostly transparent. Yeah, it's really crazy considering this version of it was released back in 2009, and really it hasn't been until maybe the past, let's say, 4 years that plug-in compressors, plug-in limiters have gotten better. Although there's a lot of buttons, and I guess my main gripe would be that the letters are too tiny. These ones are fine. It's the ones down here that I'm like squinting to see. And then the controls, you see all this white space? Yeah, I like the words to be bigger. I know it might not match the hardware, but it would be easier to see what these controls say if those words were bigger. But once you learn where the knobs are, things are a lot easier. And then basically what you want to do as the track's playing, your threshold knob goes up. So counterclockwise. You'll see. I'll do it live. Ready? And actually, if I do the waveform monitor, you can see what I'm doing. So for me, the idea is really just to get that light blinking, not solidly, that's too much. You want to have it blinking periodically. And then the other thing is you want to set your output with this control. And then this is the one that we control, setting it into the limiter, the brick wall limiter. But like I said to you guys, I like the way the parallel compressor sounds, so I'm going to turn that on and then adjust this. That's another thing to try. So basically, put the threshold all the way up after you set your settings over here, and then slowly back off of it while you have your limiter gain up so that you can hear what's going on detail wise. And then once that's set, well, basically as you raise this up, you're going to back this one down. All right. And then once you get to this point where it's blinking just a little bit, you can really just set it based on what the light's doing. The yellow light. But yeah, let me do it live. Let me keep doing it live. I forgot to mention that when you do this, find the loudest part of your track, and then you're basically just trying to get to the point where it's not distorting. So while I was just adjusting that, I realized I was on the output knob and not the limiter. So let me do this again. I forgot to thank the person that sent this track in. I'm not 100% sure if he wanted me to mention his name, so I'm going to keep that out of the video. But thank you, this track is awesome. Okay, and then one of the final mix. So we've heard something that's kind of like R&B, jazz. That was electronic. Now finally we got some rock music.
But this is something that I have to do. It is time now, and I'm no longer filled with hate. Reaching out now, I'm just hoping that it isn't too late. Too late.
So I could flatline it, or I could actually give it some punch.
but this is something that I have to do. It is time now, and I'm no longer filled with hate. Reaching out now, I'm just hoping that it isn't too late. Too late.
By the way, guys, do you remember how I used to rant about the loudness wars? This one single control would have made all the difference. That's it. Just bringing this one knob down could have saved so many mastering jobs. I'm not saying everybody used the Weiss, but no doubt about it, the Weiss was very heavily used throughout the late 90s, you know, until even nowadays. Just this one knob. One knob. And actually, I could make it a little bit louder, because on a CD, you can have it a little bit louder. So I could have it up to, you know, negative 0.3 is what I usually do for CDs. And then let's bring it up. Actually, let's do the parallel compressor. I had that off.
But this is something that I have to do. It is time now, and I'm no longer filled with hate. Reaching out now, I'm just hoping that it isn't too late. I'm writing again, a letter to you. I'm writing again to tell me what is true. I'm writing again, same letter to you. I'm writing again because I need you. I'm writing again, a letter.
By the way, thank you to Johnny P for sending this track in. For the guys that sent in tracks, I will link to their stuff in the video description if they want me to. So, yeah. Look, is this plugin worth $500? On other websites, you can get it for, I believe, $425 was the cheapest I saw it. Is it worth that much money? I tested it against Ozone 7, and Ozone 7 doesn't have the parallel compressor, but you can do that. You know, you just have to set the chain up yourself. So when you do parallel compression, parallel mix compression, we'll call it, along with Ozone 7 or Ozone 8, on this mode, IRC 4, and, you know, have this enabled, the transient, you know, it sounds pretty much the same. Maybe I'll give the slight nod to the Weiss, but Ozone is cheaper. Maybe not Ozone 7 Advanced, but Ozone 7 Standard, Ozone 8 Standard is cheaper, and I like the interface better because everything's bigger. Like I said, I don't like these small words, man. You know, I want to see big numbers, big words. That's what Ozone 7 has. So, you know, interface-wise, I mean, this is cool because it matches the hardware. So if I ever use this $8,000 piece of hardware, I'll know where everything is. It's also cool that you can press things on the screen, which you can't do in the real hardware. Plus you have the waveform view. So this is all great stuff. So don't get me wrong. This is a really nice compressor limiter de-esser. And actually, I haven't demonstrated it in this video, but on vocals, this thing kicks butt. That all said, $500. If you got a lot of money, I say go for it. If you don't have a lot of money, I say use what you have, because it's not worth it. All right, that's my final verdict. It's good. Softube, you did a great job. Weiss, you did a great job, but $500. I would say somewhere around $250 to $300 is the price point where I would consider buying it myself. But $500, no. I spent that much money on a reverb plugin, and like 2 years later, it dropped like 50%. So I'm never gonna spend $500 on a plugin ever again, because that's what's gonna happen. And so I would say wait until this drops in price. But if you're a mastering engineer and you make a lot of money mastering and $500 is a drop in the bucket, go for it. Buy this plugin. It's good. All right, this has been Adam for RealHomeRecording.com.